This may be the moment it all breaks. Donald Trump is not just rambling. He is not just exaggerating. He is not just improvising. He is visibly unraveling, and it is happening right before the State of the Union. This is catastrophic timing, and everyone around him knows it. He is standing in front of live audiences, openly questioning whether he's going to survive. I don't know how long I'll be around. He's repeating it again and again. He's wondering out loud whether he'll make it into heaven. He's telling crowds that people are gunning for him. These aren't jokes. These aren't punchlines. These are panic flares. Something is wrong. And then it gets darker. He's claiming there is an active presidential race against Gavin Newsom, who is not running. He's insisting hospital ships are being deployed to Greenland while the Pentagon confirms no such orders exist. He's ranting about men trying to kiss him violently, posting AI fantasy videos of himself attacking Canadian hockey players, confusing reality with performance, confusing timelines, confusing facts. This is not strength. This is deterioration in real time. Senators are boycotting the State of the Union. The country is bracing for what he might say next. And instead of projecting control, Trump is spiraling into grotesque magical thinking while insisting he is suffering for the country. No, the country is watching a leader who appears to be slipping, publicly, while the cabal around him pretends everything is fine. This isn't a gaffe cycle. This feels like collapse. And the nightmare for MAGA is that it's all happening on camera, with receipts stacking up by the hour. The question isn't whether he's unraveling. The question is how much further this goes. For years, Donald Trump has sold one central myth, that he is strong, that he is sharp, that he alone has the stamina, the genius, the great comprehension to run the country. That myth is now colliding with reality. Because let's remember what he has been telling his supporters. He has insisted he's healthier than ever. He's mocked others for being weak. He's claimed he aced cognitive tests. He's bragged about reading complex Supreme Court opinions with great comprehension. He has framed himself as the picture of dominance. Let's look at what he really said. I read very well, great comprehension. I read everything there is to read. And I said, we can't lose this case. That's the posture. That's the branding. Now compare that to what is actually coming out of his mouth in public speeches. Let me show you the pattern. In Rome, Georgia, in front of tens of thousands of supporters, he says, I don't think I'm going to make it to heaven. He repeats it. He lingers on it. He doubles down. I hope I make it, but I doubt I will. That's not a punchline. That's not policy. That's existential spiraling. Then he shifts, without transition, into describing men who supposedly want to grab him and kiss him violently. He acts it out. He dramatizes it. He frames it as admiration. But it sounds disjointed. It sounds obsessive. It sounds unmoored. And this is the same man who says he is the most stable genius in the room. Let's look at another receipt. He posts that Gavin Newsom has dropped out of the presidential race. There is no presidential race happening right now. Newsom isn't running. There is no campaign to drop out of. Yet Trump is speaking as if he is actively competing in an election that does not exist. That's not strategy. That's magical thinking. Then there's the Greenland episode. Trump publicly announces that a hospital ship is on its way to Greenland to help sick people there. It's framed as humanitarian outreach, strong leadership, command presence. Except the Pentagon says it has received no such orders. U.S. officials confirm no naval deployment is happening. The hospital ships are not en route. They're not mobilized. So what is that? Is it confusion? Is it fabrication? Is it fantasy? Because when a president declares military movement that the military says is not happening, that's not a minor slip. That's a credibility collapse. And he keeps layering it on. He claims elections were rigged by millions and millions of votes. He insists shadowy forces orchestrated everything. He blends grievance, paranoia, and performance into one continuous stream. He tells audiences he is suffering for the country. Notice the through line. He is simultaneously the strongest man alive and the most persecuted victim in history. That contradiction used to energize his base. Now it is exposing him. Because strength doesn't sound like, I don't know how long I'll be around. Strength doesn't hallucinate active presidential races. Strength doesn't announce phantom naval deployments. This is gaslighting on a loop. Except the footage is public. The clips are undeniable. The pattern is escalating. He says he's sharp. He says he's in control. He says he's reading better than anyone. But what we're watching is a man drifting, contradicting himself, and leaning harder into grievance and delusion as the spotlight intensifies. And the closer we get to the State of the Union, the more unstable the messaging becomes. These aren't isolated moments. These are receipts. Now let's slow this down and actually walk through the receipts, line by line, because when you lay them out chronologically, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Start with the mortality spiral. I'm reading directly from his remarks in Rome, Georgia. In front of approximately 56,000 supporters, he says, "I don't think I'm going to make it to heaven. I hope to make it, but I doubt I will." He repeats it. He circles back to it. He lingers there. Pause. This is not policy. This is not humor. This is fixation. When a political leader repeatedly speculates about not making it days before delivering a State of the Union, that is not normal messaging discipline. That is psychological leakage. Now let's move to the next sequence. In another appearance, he says, "I don't know how long I'll be around. Got a lot of people gunning for me." That's not a throwaway line. He is framing himself as under siege, potentially nearing an end, in front of cameras. You can hear the subtext. You can feel the paranoia threading through it. Then comes the disjointed kissing narrative. He describes a man saying, "If I didn't have all these cameras running, I would grab you and start kissing you violently." Trump reenacts it. He repeats it. He performs it. Let's just sit with that. A sitting political figure, days before a major national address, is devoting speech time to violent kissing hypotheticals. That's not economic messaging. That's not foreign policy. That's not discipline. That's spectacle drifting into the absurd. And the pattern continues. Let's examine the Greenland claim. He publicly announces that the United States is sending a hospital ship to Greenland. He frames it as humanitarian aid. He implies operational movement. But according to U.S. officials in the Pentagon, no such orders were issued. The ships in question are not en route. They are not deployed. They are undergoing repairs elsewhere. So I'm reading this plainly. A public declaration of military deployment that does not exist. Gross. You cannot run a stable national security posture on phantom announcements. That's not strongman leadership. That's magical thinking colliding with reality. Now look at the Gavin Newsom claim. Trump posts that Newsom has dropped out of the presidential race. There is no active presidential race. Newsom is not running. There is nothing to drop out of. This is the kind of error that reveals cognitive disorganization. It's not a slip of the tongue. It's a constructed narrative that does not align with present reality. And then there's the AI hockey video. He circulates fabricated imagery of himself physically attacking Canadian hockey players. This is while diplomatic tensions and tariff disputes are part of the public discourse. Instead of sober leadership, we get fantasy combat clips. That's not dominance. That's performative delusion. Now let's layer in the election rhetoric. He again claims elections were rigged by millions and millions of votes. He says shadowy actors orchestrated it all. He suggests systemic corruption without evidence. He blends grievance with persecution. This is not new language, but here's what's new. It's now wrapped inside existential dread and self-referential instability. He's not just saying the system is rigged, he's saying he may not be around. That combination is combustible. Then we have the ballroom obsession. In the middle of policy remarks, he pivots to building the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. He describes gold curtains, knockout panels, magnificent walkways, while claiming persecution, while claiming rigged elections, while questioning whether he'll survive. This isn't cohesive governance messaging. This is a fragmented stream of consciousness. And let's not ignore the self-assessment moment. He insists, "I read very well, great comprehension." He boasts about reading Supreme Court paragraphs and declaring, "We can't lose this case." That insistence, unprompted, is revealing. When someone repeatedly asserts their own cognitive superiority in the middle of visible disorganization, it raises a red flag, because the performance and the presentation are diverging. He says he's sharp, but the sequencing is collapsing. He says he's strong, but the rhetoric is paranoid. He says he's in control, but the messaging is chaotic. And this is all happening days before a nationally televised address that requires coherence, discipline, and stamina. You cannot dismiss this as a gaffe reel. When you line up the mortality talk, the violent kissing fixation, the phantom hospital ships, the imaginary presidential race, the AI combat fantasies, the ballroom detours, and the repeated rigged election refrains, You're not looking at isolated moments. You're looking at a pattern of escalation. And here's the most dangerous part. The people around him are normalizing it. No one is stepping in publicly to correct the Greenland claim. No one is clarifying the Newsom confusion. No one is addressing the existential spiral. The cabal is pretending this is fine. It's not fine, because when reality and rhetoric separate this dramatically, governance becomes unstable, messaging becomes reactive, decision-making becomes suspect, and the country is about to watch him deliver a State of the Union under that cloud. This isn't about partisan disagreement. This is about observable deterioration, documented, recorded, time-stamped. You can rewind the tape. The receipts are there. And the trajectory isn't stabilizing. It's accelerating. Now let's zoom out, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. This isn't just about a few strange speeches before the State of the Union. This is part of a broader pattern, a slow-motion unraveling that has been building for years. Start with the physical presentation. Watch him walk lately. The stiffness, the imbalance, the wandering eye contact, the way he drifts mid-sentence and then snaps back to grievance mode, the animatronic quality people keep mentioning, that mechanical, disconnected delivery. That's not partisan commentary. That's visual evidence. Then listen to the vocal patterns, the repetition, the volume spikes, the sudden screaming of words like tariffs, tariffs, as if shouting replaces substance. The jump cuts between topics, transgender athletes, voter ID conspiracies, snow shoveling in New York, cataract surgeries, rigged elections, all within minutes. That's not disciplined messaging. That's ranting and raving like a lunatic while pretending it's strategy. And let's talk about the business mythology. This is the same man who branded himself as the ultimate deal maker, the genius builder, the titan of industry. But history tells a different story. Casinos collapsing into bankruptcy, Trump stakes disappearing, Trump University shuttered in scandal, repeated ventures imploding under their own mismanagement. Now we're watching the political equivalent. Grand promises, phantom projects, ballroom fantasies, hospital ships that aren't sailing, tariff bravado colliding with court scrutiny. It's the same pattern. Inflate, exaggerate, deny, deflect. Except this time, the stakes aren't a failed stake brand. They're the stability of governance. And then there's the electoral reality. He insists every loss is rigged. Every setback is a conspiracy. Millions and millions of phantom votes. Basement campaigns. Crooked people everywhere. This is the language of someone who cannot process defeat, who reframes reality to protect ego. But polling volatility, special election losses, and shifting suburban demographics have been flashing warning signs. Even within his own coalition, fatigue is creeping in. When you have members of Congress openly calling for prayer because he looks sick, that's not a show of strength. That's anxiety inside the ranks. And don't ignore the psychological contradiction that keeps surfacing. He claims to be the toughest leader alive, yet constantly portrays himself as persecuted. He is both invincible and victimized, both genius and martyr. That dual narrative worked as political theater for years, but now it's fraying. Because when the victim narrative morphs into existential dread, I don't know how long I'll be around, it stops sounding strategic and starts sounding unstable. This isn't just a communications problem, it's a systems problem. When leaders begin confusing active races that don't exist, when they announce military deployments that haven't been ordered, when they circulate AI fantasy violence while diplomatic tensions simmer, that's not just embarrassing, it's dangerous. And the cabal, the enablers, the consultants, the insiders whispering, "You're doing great, sir," they are complicit. They are choosing short-term power over long-term stability. They are normalizing what would be disqualifying in any other context. History shows that decline rarely announces itself politely. It shows up in patterns, in speech fragmentation, in escalating paranoia, in grandiosity paired with grievance, in magical thinking colliding with institutional reality. And here's the uncomfortable truth. This may not be the bottom, because the closer we get to high-pressure events, national addresses, court battles, international crises, the more strain we're seeing in the presentation. Stress amplifies cracks, and the State of the Union is pressure at maximum. So when you connect the business failures, the election denial spiral, the physical presentation shifts, the cognitive disorganization, and the escalating grievance rhetoric, this doesn't look like an isolated episode. It looks like late-stage instability being broadcast live. This is not about policy disagreement. This is about whether the system is being anchored by coherence or by ego and delusion. And right now, what we're seeing feels less like command and more like collapse in slow motion. This is the line between truth and delusion. What we are watching is not normal political behavior. It's not harmless exaggeration. It's not just rhetoric. When a leader begins publicly questioning whether he'll survive, inventing races that don't exist, announcing military actions that haven't been ordered, and spiraling into grievance and fantasy days before addressing the nation, that matters. Leadership requires clarity. Leadership requires stability. Leadership requires a tether to reality. And what we're seeing instead is magical thinking wrapped in bravado, propped up by a cabal that refuses to admit what's unfolding in front of them. This is not about party. It's about accountability. It's about whether we allow spectacle, paranoia, and ego to substitute for governance. Democracies don't collapse overnight. They erode when instability is normalized. We cannot normalize this. We cannot shrug this off. We cannot let chaos masquerade as strength. If you believe in truth over gaslighting, in evidence over fantasy, in democracy over delusion, then stay informed and stay engaged. Hit subscribe. Let's push this channel to the next milestone. Independent media matters now more than ever because corporate networks won't always call this out with clarity. The receipts are there, the pattern is visible, and the country deserves leadership grounded in reality, not collapse in real time.